Can you smell that? Can you smell the excitement in the air? Do you know what time of the year it is? It's the best time in the whole entire year. And no, it's not April Fool's. It's Wrestlemania time. Ooh, yeah, brother. Can you dig it? Yeah, snap into it. Yes, that's right. It's WrestleMania season, and WrestleMania is tomorrow. And to celebrate, I'm gonna go ahead and review WWF NES games. So let's get started with the first ever licensed WWF video game, WrestleMania, with Hulk Hogan ripping and tearing the shirt on the cover. This was made by Acclaim. Back in the early 80s, there were two things that every kid loved: WWF and Nintendo. So it didn't take a genius to know that when a WrestleMania game came out on the NES, that it would sell like hotcakes. And this game was fairly popular during its time. In fact, it made a little bit of history upon its completion. Based on the annual Sports Entertainment Extravaganza published by Acclaim in 1988 for the NES, back in the 80s, wrestling and video games and cartoons and all that bullshit was everything that kids that were my age liked. G.I. Joe's had Sergeant Slaughter. WWF had cartoons. The Goonies had wrestlers in it. Everywhere you went, Hulk Hogan and Ted DiBiase and Macho Man and Hacksaw Jim Duggan and JYD. Everywhere, WWF. And every kid on the block wanted Hulk Hogan t-shirts, the little wrestling buddies and everything. But most of all, everybody wanted WrestleMania on the NES. I totally wanted to get this game for my collection because I'm a huge wrestling fan and it was the first licensed WWF game ever. Forget the stars of today. This game features all your favorite old school superstars that paved the way. A collection of the 6 roughest, toughest, and most popular superstars in history. Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Macho Man Randy Savage, Honky Tonk Man, Bam Bam Bigelow, and the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. Of course, screw being all the other guys. I always want to be Andre the Giant. The game is pretty basic overall. It isn't anything special or superb, but I knew this coming in having played it several times as a kid. For the time it was released, the graphics are pretty boring and extremely bad, seeing that in 1988, other games on the NES had more detailed graphics and pushed the NES to its limits. Sadly, this game is not one of them. As far as gameplay goes, you cannot go outside the ring at all. The ring's very small, there's no crowd of fans, and all you get is one screen with 2 wrestlers and a bar on top with the info of the time, the superstars' names, and health. When playing this game, I honestly don't and probably never will know how to do actual moves. The controls are basic, and this is pretty much a button mashing game. The wrestlers do the basic punch kick offense from the most early wrestling games and fighting games during this era. However, some wrestlers do have traditional trademark moves, but good luck finding out those. And turnbuckle attacks can be done off the 2 bottom corners, but I've yet to accomplish this. The control in the game is weird in my opinion, so I find it easier just to keep kicking and once in a while get a lucky move in. There is a 2-player option, which is more entertaining to play with a friend to figure out how to control this game. You can also play single matches and a tournament mode for the belt. This game brings many great memories of my childhood back, both video game and pro wrestling wise. And seeing that it did pave the way for other games in the future for the WWF, the nostalgic factor is why I recommend this game. I'm not going to tear it apart because it was considered fairly good in its time, but it's just aged terribly. And also, it's pretty freaking kick-ass to fucking fuck people up to an 8-bit version of Real American. But wait! There's more! We got WrestleMania Challenge. This one was the next game that came out, but it was made by the shit asses at LJN, unfortunately. Made in 1990, this game featured an updated roster with some of the best superstars in history, including Mr. Perfect, Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan, Ravishing fucking Rick Rude, who was the man, and of course, some of the classics like Andre and Hacksaw and etc. The gameplay in this one's a little bit more different. Instead of the little one screen, they actually made an arena, and the view of the ring is actually from the corner. So it's kind of like the Fire Pro Wrestling games recently. But I still don't know how to control the games very much. It's still button masher to me. When I do moves, it just happens on accident. But as you can see by the gameplay footage, I'm getting my ass pwned by Rick Rude. And this match didn't even last that freaking long. So let's try this shit again. So I'm in here, I'm trying to figure out the moves, I'm pushing all the buttons I can, and it's just not working. And what's funny is when you're a kid, this stuff doesn't matter to you. You're like, oh, Nintendo, oh, WWF. It didn't matter if the game sucked, because back then, there was no such thing as a shitty game. Games were games. And this game, while it was an improvement on graphics from the first game, it still wasn't that great of a game. It's like putting sprinkles on shit. But that's looking at it from a 2011 perspective. If you look at it for what it was back in 1990, this was a pretty good wrestling game, and I'll give it that. And just for an added bonus, even though it's not a WrestleMania game, I got King of the Ring with Bret Hart on the cover. Let's check it out. WWF King of the Ring, made in 1993. This is one of the later wrestling games, so you'd think it would be awesome since the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis had decent wrestling games. This has a badass roster. It was the new generation of superstars, which is Bret Hart, Lex Luger, Yoko, Razor Ramon, and it still had the classics. Hogan was in here. Then there was also the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, and a couple others. The graphics look better in this game. There's more options. It's tag team matches, tournament, King of the Ring, one-on-one. But as I mentioned, a big improvement to the graphical and the sounds. The theme songs are perfect NES 8-bit renditions. However, once again, punch and kicks mostly. I can't describe how to do the moves because I really just do the same body slam move over and over by luck. I don't know how to pin anybody in this game. So, to me, the controls still suck, but there's only so much you could do on a 2-button controller, as with the other 2 games I reviewed earlier in this review. So I'm not tearing up the part of the game, I'm just describing the trouble I have with the control. But it definitely was an improvement from the first WrestleMania game compared to this one. But that was almost a span of how many years? 5 years. So you'd think they would try to come up with better controls for a later game. But as I mentioned, for 1993 on the NES, this was the best that they probably could do. So they did great with what they had. The gameplay for NES is not bad, as I mentioned. It's just, it could have been a little bit more better as far as controls go. So all 3 of these games are pretty much dated, but they set the standard for most WWF games to come, and these are some of the originals. I don't have all of them, but these are the ones that I do have on the NES. And remember, enjoy your WrestleMania tomorrow, root for the good guys, boo the bad guys, and just have fun, because WrestleMania only comes once a year, brother. This is 8-Bit Eric. Thank you for watching. Snap into it.